Committee, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Yesterday we had House Bill 2167. We just heard that. I don't necessarily know that we need another briefing on it. It's the concrete mixer truck bill. We'll get a briefing from Adam on that. It may have been 2 days ago that we had it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you stated, House Bill 2167 would permit concrete mixer trucks to display a license plate on the front of the vehicle. It also would require dump trucks to display license plates, it would allow concrete mixer trucks to display either on the front or the rear of the vehicle, but would require dump trucks to display on the front of the vehicle. And with that, I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Committee, questions of Adam? Seeing none. Thank you, Adam. Committee, I do have an amendment to this bill. I'd like to take our attention, work this right off the bat. Florence, if you could hand that out. It's one on 2167. Committee, this amendment is just the exempting farm vehicles from having to move it to the front of the dump trucks. A lot of our grain trucks, the plates sit farther back in underneath, and the grain doesn't damage them as much as aggregate. Don't have to worry about the lights or anything like that. So, fairly simple amendment. Are there any questions? It's been moved by Senator Pyle, seconded by Senator Hawk. On the amendment, any further discussion of the amendment? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carried. Committee, what's your pleasure on the bill? It's been moved to pass House Bill 2167 out favorable this passage. Favorable for passage, seconded by Senator Hawk, as amended. Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The bill is on its way. Thank you, committee. We'll turn our attention to, I'm going to go out of order here since I don't see Ed Klump in the room. We'll open the hearing on 2295. Adam, could you give us a briefing?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 2295 would exempt municipal motor grader vehicles from the Kansas Uniform Commercial Driver's License Act requirements. Currently, under that act, there are exemptions for certain vehicles from having to obtain a CDL to operate vehicles. This bill would create a new exemption for motor grader vehicles operated by an employee of a municipality if such employee is operating the motor grader vehicle within the boundaries of such municipality. Essentially, those operators would not have to have the CDL to operate such vehicles. And with that, I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Any questions? Senator Pittman.
Adam, if I'm clear, this sounds like when we exempt somebody like this, even if it's inside the municipality, we're not requiring them to have a CDL or any kind of special license to operate this motor grader. Is that what I'm to understand on this?
It would exempt them from the CDL requirements, essentially, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Senator Hawk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I assume they still have to have a driver's license.
Yes, if they're going to be operating on the roadway, that would be correct.
But if they're not operating on the roadway?
The question, if they're not operating on the roadway, that gets into kind of a trickier situation of if you're not on roadway, that'd have to be something I have to look into. I'm assuming most of these would be operating on the roadway, but once you get off road, it's kind of that's kind of a different situation.
I'm just curious about that. I could see them maybe doing some sort of work that wasn't actually a roadway. Not likely, but potentially. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Other questions for Adam? Senator Pyle.
I'm just curious if anyone knows, do they ever load these on a low boy or anything and move them? I've never seen one loaded and hauled, but do they? Because they'd need a CDL to do that.
Adam, did you hear the question?
Unfortunately, I did not. It kept cutting in and out. Could you repeat, please?
Yeah, I'm curious as to whether these are ever loaded to be moved, because if you were going to load it and move it, you would probably need a CDL to operate that equipment. But I don't know. I know in my area, townships, I've never seen one loaded, but I don't know in municipalities whether they do that or not.
May have to defer to some of the proponents. That would be a different situation. The bill itself is pretty specific to operating within the boundaries of the municipality itself. So, and if you load it onto probably a commercial, a semi truck, that would be a yes. I mean, it's operating the motor grader is what triggers this provision.
Any further questions for Adam? Seeing none, thank you, Adam. We'll turn our attention to the first proponent, Deborah Barnes. Welcome back to the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Deborah Barnes, staff attorney at the League of Kansas Municipalities, and I've come to represent our cities here and to ask you to support this bill. This would be particularly helpful for our smaller cities. It can be very difficult to find staff to do all the different jobs, and this would certainly help to deploy, especially when we're dealing with snow. I think that is probably the way that it would be used the most, using these motor graders. They are also used on the roads in other ways, but it would be that deployment that would be most useful for us. So I would ask you to recommend the bill favourably to the Senate, and I stand for questions.
Committee questions for Deborah. Senator Pittman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for being here. My biggest concern would just be when we have a big motor grader, they're pretty big pieces of equipment, and we expect them operated by people who are trained to use them. And we expect cities to take on any liability for not training those folks, right? And the cities are willing to take that on. I mean, the CDL kind of is a certificate, if you will, that says, hey, these people have enough competence in operating big equipment, big machines that are heavy and operate the transmissions and understand the stopping pieces and understand that's typically for trucks. But it is something, I mean, it doesn't seem like we would have anything to back ourselves up to say, as a city, these people should be on these machines, and if they hit something or create some kind of havoc with them.
I hear you, and cities do take seriously training their staff properly, but it can still take a while to get these qualifications in place, and some places there's hardly anyone that can do it, so it would be very helpful for those, but I take on board your concerns.
Any further questions for the cities? Thank you, Deborah. We'll turn our attention to Jay Hall on WebEx, Kansas Association of Counties. Jay, there we go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Jay Hall for the Kansas Association of Counties. You have my written testimony, so I won't dive too deeply into that, but I do want to address the question that Senator Pittman, I believe, just asked regarding the training aspects. The CDL license really is designed to train individuals for how to operate a semi-trailer at highway speeds. And I touch on this in my testimony, but I want to make sure that it's understood that because this is really, the CDL is focused on operating semi-trailers at highway speeds, that's not how motor graders are used. Motor graders are used at very low speeds to grade roads and as the league mentioned, to also remove snow and things like that. So it's a completely different approach to how that vehicle is being used versus how a semi-trailer would be used. And so for that reason, our counties actually have to train their staff beyond what the CDL actually trains them for, because the CDL, the testing is actually done in a semi-trailer. It's not done in a motor grader vehicle. And so it's a completely different type of vehicle. And for those reasons, we think it's important and we think it's prudent to pass this bill out favorably. I'd be happy to stand for any questions. And I think we've got Ernie Sheets on as well that can probably answer some more questions about the training aspects. I think he's going to testify here in a moment.
Any questions for Jay? Senator Pittman.
Thank you, Jay, for that answer. What's on the flip side of this, why would we only, if we're going to do it for the cities and the counties and make it more efficient for them with their pool of motor drivers and the specialized training for these vehicles, why wouldn't we do it for other types of vehicles that it might be inside of a motor pool for construction equipment or road maintenance equipment? Why are we only exempting just this motor graders?
I think we're exempting the motor graders because specifically the motor graders are not being operated at highway speeds. I think that's really the important thing, is that because they're being operated at a lower speed and it's a different type of vehicle, you obviously have to have a different skill set to operate that vehicle versus some of these other types of trucks that may be operated at highway speeds and may be used to move equipment around, as a previous question alluded to.
Thank you.
Committee, further questions for Jay? Seeing none, thank you. Stan McAvoy, Decatur County Commissioner. Stan, are you with us?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Hear you great.
All right. I want to thank you, Chairman and committee members, for letting me testify in front of you today. We're located out in the northwest corner of the state with less than 2,800 people in our county and with a very limited workforce. We're in support of House Bill 2295, exempting motor grader operators from having a CDL. This, we feel, is an unnecessary requirement that adds an additional burden to hiring and keeping staff and employees. It's also an added expense to our county, and we believe that House Bill 2295 would be a positive change for all the counties, but especially for the smaller counties here in the northwest part of the state. I think there are 9 or 10 other counties that have joined us with written testimony in support of this bill as well. We don't feel that a motor grader operator should have a CDL. There's a lot of kids that are 14 or 15 that are driving much larger equipment on the highway with no license at all, required for tractors and combines and large implements. And with a CDL license, like stated before, has nothing to do with a motor grader. All the training and all the stuff required for that is based on driving a semi-truck. And we have plenty of drivers for semi-trucks, but we're needing people that can run the other equipment. As far as I know, there are no other equipment like scrapers or dozers or anything like that that's required to have a CDL, just only the motor grader itself. So we're wanting to get that changed to be a big help for our county and the other counties out here. There's some new CDL rules, I guess, that are going to be going in next year for newly people that are getting their CDL for the first time. And that's going to take training. And as far as we know, there's only one place in the state, which is in Beloit, that will be able to do a training for a CDL for a motor grader. We'll have cost with sending our people down there for training. It's not a one-day training, it's several days. So we'll have to spend money there to have them go to Beloit for training, lodging, time away from work that's going to cause some other issues with having enough people to operate. And then the fact is that some of the verbiage I read on this new CDL requirement might mean that we have to haul our motor grader to Beloit for our employee to take a test and operate that particular piece of machinery. Another problem we have with CDLs is we're like a training facility for trucking companies in this part of the state. If you pick up a newspaper anywhere, they're looking for truckers to drive. And we train them, send them off, get their CDL, and a week or two later, they quit and move on to another employer that can pay them more money. So it becomes like a revolving door for us out here and keeping employees because of the CDL requirements. This bill would help us be able to hire other employees without spending all that money to send them to the training, get them qualified, and then have them move on to another employer. We have plenty of truck drivers, like I said, and if the motor grader were loaded on a truck to haul somewhere for repair, of course, that driver of the semi will have a CDL and has to operate that piece of equipment. I'll wrap it up here though, but it just makes sense to exempt this piece of machinery from the CDL requirement. There's no other equipment that's required to have one other than trucks. And of course, the CDL is geared toward trucks. It's good for that, but has nothing to do with the motor grader. So we would appreciate you supporting House Bill 2295 and hope you will vote to send it out for approval. I appreciate your time, and I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions for Mr. McAvoy? Senator Hawk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Stan, thank you for your testimony. You mentioned farm kids that are 14 or 15. I assume you're not thinking about hiring them to be motor graders.
Oh, heaven's sakes, no.
Okay, good.
We don't hire anybody that's under, Ernie can talk to that a little bit more later when he testifies, but no, we would not be getting farm kids to come in and run our machinery. And we train them and make sure they're ready to go before they even go out on the road with our equipment.
Thank you. I appreciate that answer. I'm always trying to anticipate what questions we might get asked on the floor. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Committee, further questions for Mr. McAvoy? Seeing none. Thank you. Turn our attention to Ernie Sheets, Decatur County.
Good morning. Can you hear me, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, we can.
Thank you for seeing me today, and committee members. I just want to touch base on what Mr. Hall talked about, and Stan. Nobody's questioning the CDL phase right now It's awesome. It's wonderful. And it is driven toward commercial trucks, semi-trailers. That's what it's designed for. When either any of us here present listening to this can study the CDL manual front to back, have it mastered, it has absolutely nothing to do with equipment. It's about commercial traffic. It's about semis, trucks, and trailers. It has nothing to do with equipment. And like Stan said, for us out here, requiring people to have a CDL to run a motor grader, there's lots of pieces of equipment that are tremendously heavier. Somebody hung their hat on the fact that in the CDL requirements, anything above 26,001 pounds, a person was required to have a CDL. Well, there's front end loaders, there's excavators, combines, farm tractors that run up and down the road, and you're not required to have a CDL. Motor graders, when they are operating, operate from 4 to 7 mile per hour. Maximum road speed is about 27 mile per hour. It's not flying down the road at 65 mile per hour. That's basically all I got. And it would help our hiring pool out here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Committee note, we have written testimony from 9 other counties, and from Representative Adam Smith, and a road engineer, Bo French from Osborne County, Stephen Ellensberger from Phillips County, Rod Roeder from Sherman, Paul Lorenz from Logan, Brendan J. Mackey from Ellis, Joseph Herzog from Sheraton, Mark Loop from Rollins, Dave Fleming from Cheyenne County, and Claire Schrock from Thomas County. Are there any other proponents wishing to testify? Seeing none, we'll turn to the neutrals. I believe we have written testimony from Kent Selk. Kent, if you're on WebEx, I do have a question for you. Would these people have to have a like a Class B license for the weight of the motor grader if this bill went into place?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. From my knowledge, no, they would be exempt. They wouldn't have to have a Class B because, again, it's a piece of equipment. I'll just kind of maybe help out a little bit here. Hopefully, I'm not overstepping my bounds for these guys, but I do believe when FMCSA did their CDL rules way back in the day, I think everything's exempted out for these gentlemen for construction. So like front-loaded dozers, actual dozers, anything you're going to do that's going to scrapers and all that kind of stuff. For some reason, at the time, they didn't address road graders. I think that they left them in there because they drive down the street a little bit different. I'm not sure. But meeting with FMCSA, the road grader really now falls into that line of construction equipment. And again, you wouldn't bring this in to do a CDL test. So if somebody said, my job as a driver road grader, we're not going to take you to come in and do a commercial driver's license test. So I just want to give a little bit of background so you guys kind of know where we're at with that. All the other pieces of a construction equipment, if you're running those, they don't require any type of special license. But again, these individuals or construction companies or states or municipalities, they're going to have to train these individuals in a different manner to operate it. And that's outside of the commercial driver's license realm. So I just wanted to maybe help clarify a few things for the senators in the room. And with that, I'll stand for any other questions, sir.
And I have one more question. If you would identify yourself when we're ready. On this
sorry.
FMSCA, there's nothing on this end that would jeopardize any of our funding, our motor carrier safety funding that comes to the state if we pass this?
Correct, sir. Again, I'm sorry. This is Kent Selk with the Kansas Division of Vehicles. I'm the driver's services manager for the state. No, well, we met with them on it before and got their approval just to make sure we weren't doing anything wrong. And they said, no, this doesn't cross or have any issues with our funding or our state audit.
Thank you. Committee, further questions for Kent? Seeing none, thank you, Kent.
Thanks, sir.
Are there any further neutrals? Once again, any opponents? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing on 2295. We'll turn our attention to House Bill 2245. Adam, you want to give us a briefing?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 2245 permits the Division of Vehicles to collect emergency contact information as part of driver's license records and allows law enforcement agencies to use such information in the case of an emergency. Subsection A requires the division, no later than July 1, 2022, to maintain in its files a record of the name, address, and phone number of individuals authorized to be contacted by the holder of a valid driver's license, instruction permit, or non-driver's identification card in an emergency. Subsection B of the bill specifies that the emergency contact information collected would be confidential. The lien holder, the license holder, or an authorized agent may also contact or access the emergency contact information that the license holder provides. The bill goes on to state that the information can only be accessed on request by a law enforcement officer in Kansas or another state, and for the purpose of contacting the individual to report the injury or death of the license holder. The bill further requires the division to design license applications in a way to allow an applicant to provide the emergency contact information of not more than 2 individuals and include a statement on the application as to the confidentiality of those records. Additionally, the division shall establish a form on its website to allow the license holder or an authorized agent to add, amend, or delete the emergency contact information of the license holder. And with that, I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Just to be clear, Adam, it is optional for the license holder?
That is correct.
Thank you. Committee, further questions for Adam? Seeing none, we'll turn to our first proponent, and I don't see him in the room. Ed Klump, are you online? Not online. We do have written testimony. Committee, any further questions for Adam, I guess? Senator Pittman.
Just to be clear, Adam, it sounds like there is no location for people to have emergency contact listed right now inside of the driver's license system. Is that what we're to understand? And this puts that in place?
Senator, I can't speak to the current system, but that's my understanding of what the bill does. Yes.
Committee, further questions? Are there any further proponents? Any neutrals? Any opponents? Close the hearing on House Bill 2245. Committee, we do have a fairly full day tomorrow. I want to note that we have added in Senate Bill 305, which was just referred to us a day ago. I do plan on going out of character and working that on the same day that we hear it, so please read it and see if there's any amendments. If not, we will schedule another meeting if we need to. I do know I've read through it, and there's one amendment that I would like to offer. So it's Senate Bill 305. It was just referred to us yesterday. The bill is regarding automated license plate readers. It's protecting the data inside of them. It's putting some guardrails out for these automatic license plate readers, putting some guardrails out there to protect the data, saying how they have to store it and what they can use it for, and make sure it's exempt from open records request. And fairly important piece of legislation that got hung up in the revisor's office, and I don't know how we're going to get it through the whole way, but it's a bill that I think we need to hear. And yes, it's an exempt bill. Came from Ways and Means. Senator Hawk.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, just a question. Are the readers only on toll booths, or are there other readers?
You can purchase readers that go on vehicles. Motorola Solutions has them, and you can go on vehicles. They make some that you can put on tripods. Some of them you can post on bridges. I know the Turnpike's had people, we protect that information fairly closely and want to make sure, I think if law enforcement's going to start using these, some cities have started putting them out. We need to have some guardrails on them. I did not draft this bill, but I have been supportive of that concept ever since the Turnpike cameras. I think we need to get some protection on that data.
Do we have protection on Turnpike data now?
We have some. I think this will ensure us that we're moving forward. Committee, with that, we are adjourned. Tomorrow